Thanks to all of you for being here. I think I'll direct this to Dr. Fauci, but I welcome everybody's answer. I just want to go through what we do know. We've heard a lot about what we don't know. So here are the things that we do know, okay? So SARS-1, we identified the host animal within 4 months. MERS, I believe we identified the host animal within 9 months. It's now been 15 and a half, 16 months. We've still not seen, and China's not produced any evidence of the host animal that transmitted COVID-19 to a human. We know that China has a history of lab accidents. I think, Dr. Fauci, you answered Senator Graham's question. I think he phrased it as, has there ever been a pandemic that came out of a laboratory? And the answer was no. But we do know of outbreaks that came out of a laboratory. I believe back in 2004, 2 researchers in Beijing were infected doing research on SARS and led to an outbreak. China has a history of lab accidents. This outbreak happened in a city that happened to be the home, coincidentally, of a lab which we know is involved in extensive research. And what they do is they take this naturally occurring virus and they manipulate it and they change it to make it infectious to humans. We know that they do that there. They've published about it. And it also happened in a city, in a lab, where a Rutgers biosecurity expert raised concerns about its safety. And our diplomats in 2018 were cabling back to Washington expressing concern about the safety. So I take all those facts together, right? SARS, we knew the host in 4 months. MERS, we knew the host in 9. We still don't know the host for COVID, even though, and China's not being transparent about it, even though they have a vested interest in producing the host, so they can put all those down. In a lab that we know is involved in changing viruses synthetically so that they become infectious for humans, in a lab that diplomats have told us is unsafe, in a country that had a history of lab leaks, and by the way, in a virus that we know can be synthetically created because the Swiss did it. The Swiss created an exact replica of this virus in the lab for purposes of answering it. All these facts were available to us last April. Why? I'll start with Dr. Fauci. Why did you dismiss the lab leak theory as credible?
I have always said that the high likelihood is that this is a natural occurrence. I didn't dismiss anything. I just said it's a high likelihood that this is a natural occurrence from the environment of an animal reservoir that we have not yet identified. Well, and I still maintain that. But as I just mentioned in response to other questions, that since you don't know 100% about that, because no one knows, including me, 100%, what the origin is the reason why we're in favor of further investigation.
Well, given everything I've just cited, and if anything I just cited is incorrect, I hope it'll be correct that I'm relying, obviously it's not my field of study, so I'm relying on what other experts have published. What is the basis for this what is the basis for the conclusion that it is likelier to have been naturally occurring than a lab accident? I asked a specific question to the Director of National Intelligence, and how I posed it is it not true that it is the assessment that they are equally likely based on our information that we have? So as I outline all of these things here, is she wrong when she answered me yes? And based on everything I've just cited, what is it that we're basing the higher likelihood of naturally occurring? Is it simply because that's all we've ever seen in the past?
Well, we have historical experience that happened with SARS-CoV-1. It happened with MERS. It happened with HIV. It happened with virtually all the influenza pandemics. So the historical basis for pandemics evolving naturally from an animal reservoir is extremely strong. And it's for that reason that we felt that something similar like this has a much higher likelihood. But again, getting back to what I said, and let me repeat so there's no lack of clarity in that, no one knows, not even I, 100% at this point, which is the reason why we are in favor of further investigation.
But going back to precedent, the precedents require them to be similar. The difference between this one and that one is, as I said, 4 months we knew the host for SARS, 9 months we knew the host for MERS. China has all the incentive in the world to produce this host and hasn't done so. And then you add up all these other things. I mean, is it just a coincidence that happened in the city that's doing this kind of research, which, by the way, is controversial? I know you and others have been supportive of it, but it's controversial. It's not widely accepted as good. My whole point is there are people out there who had Facebook posts taken down, were called kooks, conspiracy theorists, for saying publicly a year ago what we now say may be possible. And I think those people deserve an apology at a minimum. Thank you.
A headline like that of this morning could very well cause some real setbacks. I see my time has expired. I now yield to the ranking member for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Fauci, Dr. Walensky, we're going to be passing out some pictures. These are pictures that were taken just last week during the trip that I took along with 10 of my colleagues to the southern border over in McAllen, Texas, some from the border in McAllen at a temporary processing center, some at the Donna detention facility, where you can see in some of these cells they're holding people. I'll let you take a look at those, but while you're reviewing those pictures, I'd like to read the CDC guidance that y'all have issued on Mexico. And first it says level 4, which is the highest level, very high level of COVID-19 in Mexico. This is CDC. 1, travelers should avoid all travel to Mexico. That's CDC guidelines. Because of the current situation in Mexico, even fully vaccinated travelers may be at risk for getting and spreading COVID-19 variants and should avoid all travel to Mexico. This is CDC. You go on to say some other things. Then we talk about traveling back into the United States. This is only if you're an American citizen. All air passengers coming to the United States, including U.S. citizens and fully vaccinated people, are required to have COVID-19 test results no more than 3 days before travel or documentation of recovery from COVID-19 in the past 3 months before they board a flight to the United States. That's a CDC guidance document. So first, Dr. Walensky, should everybody who comes in the United States follow this guidance, not just American citizens, but everybody coming into the United States?
The CDC guidance by air is guidance not just coming from Mexico, it's air travel from all over the country.
So Guatemala, for example, should follow this guidance.
It's all over the globe, Europe, everywhere.
El Salvador should follow this guidance?
All over the globe if you travel by air.
I appreciate you answering that, because we'll get to that in a minute, because on my flight back from McAllen back home to New Orleans, about half of the plane were some of the people that are in these pictures who were getting on these flights not being tested for COVID in violation of your guidance. So let me ask you, and this is, by the way, Secretary Mayorkas just recently testified that he admitted that apprehended migrants were released before getting a COVID test who came from Mexico, from El Salvador, and getting on an airplane. Is that in violation of CDC guidance?
The CDC is providing technical assistance to the Office of Refugee Resettlement for the people who are leaving the DHS and customs.
So let me ask you specifically, if somebody came from one of those countries that you just listed, you said every country, but here you're specifically talking about Mexico. If they came from Mexico and then got on an airplane without a COVID test, does that violate CDC guidance?
This is guidance. It's not law, but these are the recommendations.
Okay, so it doesn't say recommendation. This says all are required. That's not a recommendation, Dr. Walensky. That's a requirement by the federal government for American citizens. Is there an exemption for people who come here illegally to this guidance? It's a yes or no question. Should everybody comply? Or
everybody coming into the United States by air is supposed to have a test 1 to 3 days before coming and 3 to 5 days.
Okay, well then let me just advise you that the Director of Homeland Security has testified that that's not happening. And so I know y'all meet with the President more than me. I know our leadership's requested a meeting with the President, and he's yet to meet with us. You will meet with him before I do. Can you let him know that he's violating your own CDC guidance in how he's running their southern border right now? Because look at these pictures. Dr. Fauci, does this look like social distancing to you that you require when you talk about 6 feet?
No.
So in these cells, as you just said, they're violating the very guidance that you tell Americans to follow. A restaurant in the United States would be shut down today if they were being run like this, yet the federal government, the Biden administration, is running this facility. You can see all of these young children who are next to each other 6 inches apart, many without masks, by the way. Does that follow your guidance that you've issued?
No.
Well then, why would the Biden administration not go and stop this. I think one of the reasons is because President Biden and Vice President Harris won't even go see this for themselves. That's why I keep urging strongly that they go to the border. I'd love for y'all to go to the border to see this so you can at least give recommendations. They're violating every guidance that Americans are required to follow. Again, you look at the CDC guidance on Mexico, it's off the charts saying how dangerous it is. If you're an American citizen, with the vaccination, you have to, not should, have to get a COVID test saying you're negative to come back home to America. Yet if you're coming here illegally, the Homeland Security Secretary admitted in a hearing just the other day that they're not testing people who come here illegally. Dr. Fauci, do you think that sends the right message to America, who people are trying to recover and get back to their way of life, that if you're a citizen, you follow this set of rules, but if you come here illegally, you don't have to follow any of your rules?
No doubt it's a very difficult situation at the border, Congressman.
Do you think this should get fixed?
Excuse me?
Do you think this should get fixed and they start following the same rules that you and I have to follow?
I mean, obviously, everyone would like to see that situation fixed, I know, but it's a very difficult situation that is.
Americans want to get back to their life, but they don't want two sets of rules either, and that's what's happening right now at our southern border. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
I thank the ranking member for
Chairwoman. Dr. Fauci, I believe you have testified that you didn't give any money to the Wuhan lab to conduct gain-of-function research. Is that right?
That is correct.
How do you know they didn't lie to you?
Excuse me, sir?
How do you know they didn't lie to you and use the money for gain-of-function research anyway?
Well, we've seen the results of the experiments that were done and that were published, and that the viruses that they studied are on public databases now. So none of that was gain of function. So
How do you know they didn't do the research and not put it on their website?
there's no way of guaranteeing that, but in our experience with grantees, including Chinese grantees, which we've had interactions with for a very long period of time, they're very competent, trustworthy scientists. I'm not talking about anything else in China. I'm talking about the scientists that you would expect that they would abide by the conditions of the grant, which they've done for the years that we've had interactions.
So you don't think the Chinese would lie to you?
Well, when you say the Chinese are a rather broad group. I know the scientists that we've dealt with have been trustworthy.
Mm-hmm. You think all the scientists have told the truth in terms of the origin of the Wuhan virus and not been influenced by the Communist Party of China, do you?
I don't have enough insight into the Communist Party in China to know the interactions between them and the scientists, sir.
Right. Why are we giving them money in the first place?
Well, that's a very good question, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to answer it. Well, SARS-CoV-1 started in China, in Guangdong province, and it went from a bat to a civet cat to a human.
Yes, and excuse me, Doc, for interrupting you, but our time is so limited.
No, I'm going to be real quick.
Our time is so limited. Why are we giving money to the labs in China to study virology?
Well, I'm going to give you a rather succinct answer to that, sir.
I appreciate that.
And that's why I was saying the SARS-CoV-1, clearly the bats that have the viruses, that are the coronaviruses, are in China. As I said a couple of times, it's not in Fairfax County, Virginia, or is it in New York? It's in China. So if you want to show and study, importantly, the animal-human interface.
Because that's where the bats are.
Yeah, the bats. That's where the bats are.
I want to be sure I understand your testimony. You didn't give money to the Wuhan lab to do gain-of-function research.
That is correct.
And you believe they didn't do gain-of-function research because they told you they didn't.
We've seen the results of the studies that they conducted, and they were not
including any private studies.
Excuse me? Including?
Any private studies.
I'm not sure what you're getting at, sir.
Here's what I'm getting at. You gave them money and you said, don't do gain-of-function research.
Correct.
And they said, we won't.
Correct.
and you have no way of knowing whether they did or not, except you trust them. Is that right?
Well, we generally always trust the grantee to do what they say, and you look at the results.
Have you ever had a grantee lie to you?
I cannot guarantee that a grantee has not lied to us because you never know.
Yeah. Can we agree that if you took President Xi Jinping and turned him upside down and shook him, the World Health Organization would fall out of his pocket?
I don't think I can answer that question, sir. I'm sorry.
Well, do you think that the President Xi Jinping has undue influence over the World Health Organization, do you?
I have no way of knowing the influence of the president of China over the WHO.
Okay, so you think the WHO is a completely independent body, level playing field, call it like you see it, and they really want to get to the bottom of the origin of the virus. Do you believe that?
My interaction with the WHO and for Dr. Tedros, the Director General, has been one that I do believe he's a person of high degree of integrity.
I want to ask one last question. Why did you guys spike, not guys and ladies, why did y'all spike the prior administration's investigation into the origins of the coronavirus and whether it could have come out of the Wuhan lab?
Sir, we did not spike anything in the prior administration. I'm not sure what you mean by spike, but we have no influence.
The State Department spiked the prior administration's study.
But that has nothing to do with the National Institutes of Health.
So they didn't consult with y'all?
They did not.
Did they consult with you, Dr. Collins?
I read about it in the press this morning.
Doc? They just spiked it without talking to their experts? You don't want to answer that one, do you?
I just read about it.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Murphy.
Don't have a score on exactly what the grant programs would be contemplating here, but whatever the cost would be, my amendment would just simply fund those from the unobligated funds for the American Rescue Plan. It's a pretty simple amendment. But while I have the floor here, I do want to speak to another issue that I think is important to this committee. This committee is the Senate Oversight Committee. When I was chair for 6 years, I know there was some support for investigations, some of my oversight, sometimes there wasn't. But when we have hearings on nominees, we ask them a question whether or not they will comply with legitimate congressional oversight requests. And they always say yes, and that's also true of, for example, the HELP Committee. 5 senators from this committee sent letters to the NIH and the CDC, and then separately to the CDC and HHS. And we invoked 5 U.S.C. 2954, which states that an executive agency on request of the Committee on Homeland Security or any 5 members thereof shall submit any information requested of it relating to any matter within the jurisdiction of this committee. Now, again, this committee has broad oversight jurisdiction. We have not gotten those oversight letters responded to, not effectively, not in a complete format. Mr. Chairman, I sent you a letter, also signed by 5 senators, requesting that you utilize this committee's power to compel the agencies to follow the law. They shall supply the information. Now, I just want to use one example, a letter we sent to HHS Secretary Becerra requesting the unredacted emails from Anthony Fauci that were provided under a FOIA request to a number of different outside groups. We requested those same emails unredacted. By the way, congressional oversight is not subject to the redactions under FOIA. We should have received those completely unredacted. Proof of the fact that the redactions are not valid I just have copies of one of the emails. This is an email from Peter Daszak dated April 18th, and it's just thanking Anthony Fauci for basically covering for EcoHealth Alliance. You can see in what was produced to the committee and in the FOIA request, we have a big old redaction here. And now it was redacted supposedly because it was related to an open law enforcement investigation. We basically got the same 4,000 pages, the 5 senators, except on this one email, they failed to redact that. So now we know what's under the redaction. Let me just quick read you what supposedly was related to an open law enforcement investigation. It says, it has been a very hard few months as these conspiracy theorists have gradually become politicized and hardened in their stance, especially because the work we've been doing in collaboration with Chinese virologists have given us incredible insight into the risks that these viruses represent so we can directly help protect our nation from bat-origin coronaviruses. We're fighting to keep the communications open with our Chinese colleagues so that we can better address future pandemics like COVID-19. I have no idea why that would be redacted in an oversight response to Congress. I have no idea how that paragraph could be related to an open law enforcement investigation. So I won't go in, I won't describe this any further other than to, again, make the point. This law that we are invoking that tells the agencies they shall turn over this information, this is a 100-year-old law. It's been modified 2 times, most recent time in 1994, signed by Bill Clinton. The Supreme Court has affirmed Congress's need to have information to write effective legislation. For too many years, and again, I was the brunt of it for 6 years as chairman of this committee, government agencies, regardless of the administration, have thumbed their nose at congressional oversight. They just simply refuse to comply. So we end up being completely ineffective in an incredibly important constitutional duty and responsibility of Congress. Now, again, there is no reason. They have the emails. All they have to do is provide them to the 5 senators who have requested them in an unredacted fashion. By the way, our other oversight request is to CDC regarding any contact between the teachers' unions and CDC regarding their reopening of school guidance. Was that based on science? Was that based on political pressure? I think the public has a right to know. So again, as the Senate Committee on Oversight, if we sit back and do nothing, administrations in the future, regardless of whether they're Republican or Democrat, whether Democrats are in the majority in the Senate or Republicans are, administrations will continue to ignore our oversight requests, and we will not be able to fulfill our constitutional duty and responsibility to our constituents. So I would hope that every member on this committee would join those 5 senators that join me and use this committee's power to subpoena those records to say in a very strong, unified, unanimous voice, Congress will not be ignored. Our oversight responsibilities are important. And we demand, we insist that the administration provide us this information. But, Mr. Chairman, I'm asking that you work with me to prepare a subpoena. Hopefully, we don't even have to vote on it. You have the power to issue it. I would certainly hope that Senator Portman would not send a letter of disapproval, but we can get this subpoena out forthwith and fulfill our constitutional responsibility to oversight. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Johnson. And certainly I concur that we need to get information. We need to do our job here as an oversight committee and make every effort to make sure we're getting information necessary to conduct oversight. And I'm happy to consider any request. I'm happy to continue to work with you on this issue as well, because I think it is something that we need to pursue. But I'm going to note that you requested the documents under 5 U.S.C. Section 2954 in December, and the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals held that Section 2954 confers standing on a minority of members of the committee to obtain agency information. But the court recognized that the statutory right conferred by Section 2954 is entirely distinct from the committee's subpoena authority, and use of subpoena is inconsistent with this authority that you're invoking. That's my understanding of the law, but I'm happy to continue to work with you.
Again, we can put pressure on the agency from, using that statute or committee subpoena.
Well,
So again, the way to affirm congressional's right to this information is for this committee to act separately from our request and support what we're trying to do here. Because if we don't, administrations of the future can continue to thumb their nose, and we might as well close up shop from a standpoint of oversight.
well, as I mentioned, Senator, I'm happy to work with you. We're going to continue to work together on this.
Appreciate that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My first question for Dr. Walensky. As a physician, we always want to be able to know and discuss the benefits and risk of anything that we're prescribing, including a vaccine. It's estimated that 40, maybe 50% of children have already had the COVID virus. What are the additional benefits to the vaccine to a child who's already had the virus?
I think it very much depends on what the variant that child might have had, whether they could potentially be infected or reinfected. And, one thing I just want to note with the children is I think we fall into this flawed thinking of saying that only 400 of these 600,000 deaths from COVID-19 have been in children. Children are not supposed to die. And so 400 is a huge amount for a respiratory season.
Thank you. Dr. Woodcock, how many children under the age of 18 without a pre-existing condition, a significant health condition, have died from COVID in this country?
I don't have that at my fingertips. I'm sorry.
Dr. Walensky,
Over 400.
without health
that
condition?
I don't
So
know.
I think the answer is probably zero. So I think if you take a deep dive, most of the children that have died had some type of underlying health condition. Dr. Fauci, in my hand is a three-dimensional printing of the COVID spike, something that's certainly a scientific, just baffles me in so many ways. That it's composed of two units, as you know. There's an S2 subunit and an S1, and I'd like you to talk about the S2 subunit for a second. Can you explain the significance of the furin cleavage site, the double arginine CGG codon, if you would, and how that works clinically for us?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Senator. The furin cleavage site is a site of a set of amino acids, which is at the point where the enzyme furin can cleave it so that the virus can then bind to the receptor cell and then enter the cell. So it is seen on a number of viruses. It's been seen it's on the SARS-CoV-2, and it's also seen on other beta coronaviruses. You asked also about the double CGG codon.
Right.
That is a codon, again, that is unusual, but it is also seen on a number of beta coronaviruses. It is not a very common codon for the amino acid in question, but it is seen in coronaviruses.
Dr. David Baltimore, a Nobel laureate, I'll quote him here. When I first saw the furin cleavage site in the viral sequence with its arginine codons, I said to my wife, it was the smoking gun for the origin of the virus. These features make a powerful challenge to the idea of a natural origin for SARS-2. And again, this is Nobel laureate Dr. David Baltimore saying this.
Right.
Would you agree or disagree with Dr. Baltimore?
Well, Dr. Baltimore, who is an extraordinarily accomplished scientist, has backtracked on that statement and says, I wish I had not used the word smoking gun when it was pointed out to him that actually this is seen in a number of coronaviruses, including one of the common cold coronaviruses. So I believe if you would ask...
So you disagree with him?
Well, I agree with his second statement where he backtracked and said he wished he had not used...
So you disagree with his first statement, though?
And he disagrees with his first statement.
Okay, he's not going to answer the question. We also have the S1 subunit, and I refer to the timeline behind me here, that there was a moratorium placed for viral gain of function in 2014. And I think you'll agree with me that the NIH funded research that led to this, an S1 spike that looks very similar, if not exactly, to what's on the COVID-19 spike.
What are you referring to, Senator? Can you please be more specific?
Yeah. So I'm talking about the S1 subunit of the current COVID-19 spike.
Yeah, what about it? I mean, are you talking about an experiment? Are you talking about a paper that was published?
So I'm talking about viral research that was done using NIH funding with the North Carolina lab, and Dr. Shi developed this S1 subunit spike that looks exactly like what we have on the current COVID-19 spike.
Yeah.
Is that not true?
No, I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to. Are you referring to the paper of Barrick and Shi in Nature Immunology? Is that what you're referring? I need to know specifically.
Yeah, so Dr. Barrick and Shi printed studies on this S1 unit that was basically the development of the key to the door that was specifically took the original SARS virus and made it so it would bond to the human lung cells.
No, there was no gain. If you're referring, Senator, to gain of function, by the definition.
Okay,
at
that's
the
not my
pause.
question.
Well,
but
well,
would you agree that
when-
the spike that was developed there is what's also on the current
Yeah, but
COVID-19 virus?
that's irrelevant to anything until you have a context in which you're putting it. You're talking about an S1 and a spike in what context? If you're talking about a paper that was written by them?
But you agree or disagree that it's the same spike?
I'm not sure what you're talking about, Senator. I'm really not sure what you're talking about.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Senator Casey.
Thank you, Chair Murray, and I want to thank the
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank our witnesses for being here and for their diligent work in developing the vaccine for COVID and for working with its distribution. I want to first start by quoting from a 2011 opinion piece that Dr. Fauci and Dr. Collins wrote for the Washington Post, A Flu Virus Risk Worth Taking, where it includes that you conclude, along with support for this research comes a responsibility to ensure that the information is used for good, safeguarding against the potential accidental release or deliberate misuse of laboratory pathogens is imperative. The engineered virus developed in the ferret experiments in your column are maintained in high security laboratories. The scientists, journal editors, and funding agencies involved are working together to ensure that access to specific information that could be used to create dangerous pathogens is limited to those with an established and legitimate need to know. So when I'm looking at a letter that Congressman Mike Gallagher sent to you back in early May, says that that funding for the, sorry, let me find this here, that funding was about $17 million was directed to Echo Health Alliance, and rather than $600,000, much of that was sent to the Wuhan lab. Can you account for the 17 million that was allocated to Echo Lab and speak to the disparity in the amounts that you're discussing, Dr. Fauci?
Yeah, Congressman Klein, it is absolutely correct that about 800,000 was allocated and about 600,000 was spent over a 5-year period, no more than that. That comes to anywhere between $125,000 and $150,000 per year that went into collaboration with Wuhan. So the number of hundreds of thousands as opposed to millions is correct. The millions number is incorrect. EcoHealth had several millions. I don't know the exact amount that went to EcoHealth, but would be happy to get you that precise number.
I see it now, 13.7 that was allocated to EcoHealth, 17 projects sponsored by NIAID, providing over 7.9 million in federal awards for the research of viral emergence from bats in Southeast Asia. Echo Health Alliance passed some of its funding to WIV, the Wuhan lab, and in 2020, NIH made efforts to obtain information from Eco Health Alliance about Wuhan lab related to concerns about the origins of COVID-19. It says in your letter to Echo Health, it's our understanding that one of the subrecipients is the Wuhan lab. It's our understanding that WIV studies the interaction between coronavirus and bats. And there are now allegations that the current crisis was precipitated by the release from WIV of the coronavirus responsible for COVID-19. Given these concerns, we're pursuing suspension of WIV from participation in federal programs. It's in the public interest that the NIH ensure that a subrecipient has taken all appropriate precautions to prevent the release of pathogens that it's studying. Would you say it's come to your conclusion that the Wuhan lab was not engaged in the safe, in ensuring the safety of its facility as you wrote back in 2011? Is that your conclusion?
I'm sorry, Congressman Klein, I'm not sure what you're reading for. I didn't write anything in, I don't believe, in 2011. You're reading from something that I don't have in front of me. Was that something that I signed?
This is an April 2020 NIH letter to EcoHealth Alliance.
I think that was from Building 1, perhaps, but that's not from me.
Okay.
That's from Dr. Michael.
Let me just go ahead and ask real quick. Have you responded to the letter to Congressman Gallagher dated May 5th, Dr. Collins?
There is a draft of that letter that's in the process of going through appropriate clearance and should be received by Congressman Gallagher fairly soon.
Have you responded to the letter from House Commerce Ranking Committee member Kathy McMorris Rogers? She's written two, one dated March 18th, one dated May 6th. Have you responded to either of those?
Again, those responses are in the works. Those were very detailed with some 29 questions and 11 pages and 40 footnotes. So it's taking us a little while.
All right. And you have a May 20th letter from several senators that is waiting for an answer as well.
We do indeed, on similar topics from Senator Johnson and others, and that is also in the works.
All right. Thank you.
Let me ask, is Congresswoman?
Thank you very much. Thank you for being here today, testifying. Dr. Walensky, you've been in your current post since January. You're in the top position, and you surely have heard critiques of the job the CDC has done so far in this administration, even the last. You usually learn from some things that happened in the past. What would you say to those who look to the CDC and say that change is needed, that perhaps the agency needs a bit of restructuring?
Thank you for that question. Certainly during
what would you do different?
What would I do differently?
Go ahead.
Certainly during the times of pandemic, I came in on January 20th. We had our pedal to the metal, shall we say, moving forward to try and do everything that we could to get us out of the pandemic. We've made a lot of progress. We've had to be humble about what this virus can do, and a lot has changed just in the last 6 months. We need a public health infrastructure in this country that allows CDC and our states and local health departments to be prepared for a pandemic. And so in that process of restructuring, we need long-term disease-agnostic funding that isn't like a roller coaster that comes with one pandemic or one infectious disease threat and disappears when that threat is gone. We are going to be dealing with this when God willing, everybody is vaccinated and people are well and the pandemic is largely behind us. We have long COVID. We will have boosters to be thinking about. We will be dealing with mental health issues for a very long time to come, and we need the public health infrastructure to do so. That would be my biggest ask and change.
Thank you. Dr. Woodcock, the FDA currently has emergency use authorization for 3 COVID vaccines, but they have not yet received the full FDA seal of approval. What would you say to the vaccine hesitant people who don't feel comfortable taking a vaccine that hasn't been fully FDA approved?
Well, first of all, I would say we did not cut any corners in these 30,000 patient trials and these 44,000 patient trials and all the surveillance you've been hearing about of potential rare side effects. So compared to other vaccines, they'd be looking at These have really gotten the full court press as far as evaluation and study, and they've gone through the FDA process, and they've gone to the ACIP, the CDC's advisory committee, and it's strongly recommended that people take them. That said, it is public that that one of the companies put a marketing application before us, and we are going to do everything we can to review that in a timely manner. But of course, I can't say anything more about that.
What kind of timeline do you think that will have full approval?
That's the kind of thing I can't talk about. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Dr. Fauci, we've made this way too political. This has been tough on the American people. We all know that. Everybody's worked hard to try to get through this. Politics has played a huge role in this. We've all watched it from close and afar. But I think people need a unifying message from all of us. Because in my state of Alabama, we don't have everybody taking a vaccine, and we're having outbreaks as we speak. We've had Operation Warp Speed. General Pereira here in a committee hearing, not in this committee, but in other committee, he took a beating, saying how poorly a job he did. And the American people saw that. You know, a lot of people voted for Donald Trump. And a lot of people in the South, a lot of people in my state voted for Donald. And we have to have a unified message. We can't be blaming this or that. We've got to go north with this. We can't go south. We can't go the other direction. So, Dr. Fauci, can you understand that unless this administration acknowledges the efforts of the last one, a large part of the Americans, they're going to continue to feel like nothing's positive. They're not going to take the vaccine. Right. You understand what I'm saying?
I understand exactly what you're saying, Senator, and thank you. That's a very appropriate question that I would be pleased to answer. Having been present through the last year, which was the year when COVID began, the last year of the former administration, I can tell you that no doubt that the former administration deserves a considerable amount of credit for the effort that was put into Operation Warp Speed that was able to allow not only the rapid development and testing, but also the implementation of the vaccine. So there's no doubt in my mind, as someone who has been on both sides of the fence, to say that's the case. But with regard to your unifying message, if I might, sir, I think what we need to appreciate is that we are dealing with a common enemy, and the common enemy is the virus. The virus doesn't know if you're a Republican, Democrat, or independent. The virus just knows that it makes people ill and it kills people. And we have an extraordinarily efficient tool against that common enemy. And what I would hope the message would be, the unifying message, is let's all pull together and utilize that tool, which is vaccination, to really crush that common enemy. I think we have it within our capability to do it, and I would hope that that would be the message.
Positive attitude plus effort equals performance. And if we keep that positive attitude, we can get through this thing. We just need to quit fighting in the media and get everybody believing in the same thing. We're all on the same team. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Senator Hickenlooper.